From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
All right, welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast. This is your weekly podcast about consumption. We are proud members of the You Run Podcast Network. You can find all of our previous episodes, all of our upcoming episodes, and all the other great shows on the You Run Podcast Network at yourunpodcast.com. With me this week, not wearing his sunglasses, is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster Podcast, and his name is Sean. Sean, how are you today?
You know, you look like your head fell in the cheese dip back in 1957, and Mama don't like tattletales.
I'm glad you led with that line instead of the one that is played ad nauseum. But before we get into that, as WrestlerMAYnia or whatever, WrestlerMAYnia rolls on, Sean, what have you been watching this week?
I can't wait till we get to the fourth week and I can throw the Four Horsemen up, for week 4, the final week.
I mean, you can do it right now if you want.
It'd be 2, and that's kind of, to our British listeners, that's a little rude. British watchers, one of these.
Oh, so you're going to have BP telling us, stop being a dick?
This is for BP specifically. All right, so I will lead off since this is WrestlerMAYnia. I will start off with my wrestling corner. Used to be Wrestler Corner. Used to be Wrestler Corner all the time, but I'm going to start off with just Dark Side of the Ring, of course, because the season's still going on. This time around, it was the original superstar Billy Graham. He was a wrestler. He was a wrestler. He was a wrestler more of the late 70s, 80s, and then he had a comeback. But he was basically he was ahead of his time. He was like a bodybuilder. He had a really good physique. He liked to pose. Essentially, Hulk Hogan totally stole his gimmick maybe 5 or 6 years later and used it for better. Yeah, Hulk Hogan's totally on the level. Used it for better effect. Did the poses, did the thing to the ear. Billy Graham did that first. Billy Graham was kind of notorious for having some steroid problems, some drug problems. It kind of took him out of the game for a little bit. He lost
Hulk
the
Hogan
WWE.
Stole that from him too.
Yeah. I'll get to that. WWE, he was the champion for a short amount of time. They had they told him in advance, your run's going to be basically 9 months. This is the day you're going to lose the title. Lost it to Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund eventually lost it to the Iron Sheik, and Iron Sheik dropped it to Hulk Hogan. Billy Graham came back. Yes, Billy Graham came back after some issues in his personal life. And his new gimmick was this karate expert, except he didn't have a really good move set, and he did karate chops and stuff, and he didn't move much. He was a lot thinner, a lot more frail than he was previously. He basically got dropped again because he didn't really, he wasn't getting any heat. And he ended up testifying against WWE in their whole steroid trials that they had. And yeah, that kind of sealed his deal. I know they had a comeback. I remember he had a comeback where WWE would show him and him trying to do his weights and stuff after he had a hip surgery or whatever. He ended up I believe he had some kind of cancer, and he fought it off for 20 years. It seemed always, hey, Billy Graham has 6 months to live. He has 6 months to live. And it just kept getting pushed and pushed. I think it went for 20 years, and he ended up passing away. And that was the Dark Side of the Ring. It wasn't one of my favorite because Billy Graham's not really somebody that I knew much about other than his gimmick was stolen by Hulk Hogan. He got sick. He had his surgery and he was going to die for 20 years. So that's really all I knew about him. They had his son and daughter on, and I believe his ex-wife was on they interviewed them. So he's an interesting character. Just wasn't one of my favorite episodes because I just didn't know much about him. Other than that, I moved on to the 1985 film. I don't know if you've heard of this. It's called The New Kids. Have you heard of this movie? Have you heard of it? It's a Sean Cunningham joint. It has Tom Atkins.
Yeah.
Tom Atkins is a small role. He dies in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Spoiler. It's got Lori Loughlin. Yeah. James Spader, Eric Stoltz are probably the big headliners. And essentially it's about 2 kids who their dad was Tom Atkins. He was in the military. He went to go meet the president because he did something cool. I can't remember what it was. And he ends up dying in a car crash. Their parents, the kids' parents, and their uncle from Florida come up to Virginia or wherever it is to take them back to live with him. And he has this Christmas themed amusement park that he's trying to get off the ground. And the kids, Lori Loughlin and the brother, I can't remember his name, the actor kind of stopped acting after this movie. They come to this town, they start working on the thing, they start to get bullied because Lori Loughlin isn't interested in James Spader, and James Spader has this like bleach blonde hair.
I thought you were going to say she was bribing college admission boards.
No, that was coming later in the movie. That's like near the end. And then
that's a footnote to the next movie, the sequel.
Yes. New Kids on the Block. The New Kids on the Block. So they get it's this whole like back and forth. They get to the carnival. There's some killings and stuff and some blood. It was not bad. It's entertaining. I mean, it wasn't the best movie I'd ever seen, but it was a watch. I'd give it half a hot dog if I was giving it a rating on the rating scale. And then lastly but not least,
for Sean Cunningham movies is okay. It's a movie. Yeah. Even his high points, like Friday the 13th aside, like the original, which obviously I think that's his best thing that he's put his name on, even if he is also responsible for fucking it up. Like what would be behind that? House? Maybe?
Yeah, I like House.
I like House. I actually like the later ones because they're just so
I
off
like
the
House
fucking wall. But I like House 4 because it's got the pizza man in it. But point being is he doesn't have a whole ton of like great films
Bangers
under his belt. Yeah, you know. And if House and Friday the 13th, the first one, are like your claim, but well, I guess his name's on Jason Goes to Hell, but he didn't direct that. But it just seems like for a guy who's lauded as being like one of horror's great directors, and I should say, you know, with a grain of salt, my favorite franchise and all that, sure, but like you compare him to a guy like Carpenter or a guy like Craven, it's just not even the same fucking league. And that's not even taking in guys like Argento or, you know, Romero or probably 50 other guys that you could name ahead of him.
Yeah. Then the last but not leastly, the 1987 movie North Shore, which my brother-in-law has been telling me for years to watch. I finally ended up sitting down and watching that one. It has Matt Adler, who was in Teen Wolf and Whitewater Summer. I talked about Whitewater Summer like 2 months ago. Nia Peoples, who was on the TV series Fame and Deep Star 6, amongst other things. Gregory Harrison, who was in Razorback, Trapper John MD, Air Bud, Golden Receiver. That's the football one, if you didn't know. It's about a guy from Arizona who wins a wave pool surf contest, and he wins $500. And he takes the money and goes to Hawaii with dreams of becoming a pro surfer, and kind of the trials and tribulations of that whole situation. It's like a coming of age film. It was actually like surprisingly really good. Like I really enjoyed it for an 87 coming of age movie about a kid from Arizona that wins a wave pool championship. I mean, it's all right there. He gets like in with this guy who's a famous surfboard designer, shaper guy, and kind of learns the ropes from him, and he meets new friends and one of those kind of things. Laird Hamilton, who's like a pretty famous surfer, is in the movie as like the antagonist, essentially the bad guy surfer of the movie. But it was pretty good. Like the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my God, this is actually like a decent movie. Because, you know, it's hard when it's someone else's like childhood movie that they've seen 100 million times because it's been on HBO, and then they tell you about it and you're like, yeah, that could be all right. And half the time it ends up turning up being shit. This was actually pretty good. I was really pleasantly surprised. But my brother-in-law does have pretty good taste in movies, though. Most of the ones he's been like, you should watch this, except for Something Evil, Something Wicked This Way Comes. I don't remember which one it is. That's like a Disney.
Something Wicked This Way Comes.
He's like, oh man,
familiar.
This movie scared me when I was a kid. You got to watch it. And we watched it together, and he was like, yeah, sorry, this wasn't very good. But North Shore, recommend it. I would give that a full hot dog if I was giving it a hot dog scale rating. So that's what I watched. Yeah, I just did. I wanted to, and I just did. John, that's all I've been watching. How about you?
So I'm going to rant a little bit with this one. So hear me out. And it's not so much a rant about the movie. It's more about humans being shitty. So I watched the 2009 version of Night of the Demons, the reboot version, this past week. Obviously, that's what we're talking about. It's what we watched recently. And I'm not going to sugarcoat and act like, oh, this is some fucking genius movie. It's Edward Furlong in his, you know, not great days. I mean, at the high point, you have Shannon Elizabeth in it, and There's a couple other people you'll recognize, like Linnea Quigley's got her quick little pop-up scene because of course she does and whatnot. Like the movie is fine. It's, late 2000s, early 2000s trash. It's capitalizing on a name. It's kind of taking the loose idea of Night of the Demons and making it very new metal version of that, and whatever. I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and try to like sell this as like some great movie or something that you have to watch, but I like the franchise Night of the Demons and I had nothing else to do, so I landed on this. Where my rant comes in, I posted something that I didn't even say that I was watching it. I just posted an image from the movie, and this fucking fucker on Instagram spends the next like 30 minutes just posting under it all these reasons why this is like the worst fucking thing in the world. It's absolute trash. How dare you watch this? How dare you? All this shit. And my only response was like something to the effect of like, is it trash? Yes, but that's not going to stop me from watching it. Like, you're going to have to come at me with a lot more of a reason to not watch this than trash, because
we watch a lot of trash.
And quite frankly, too, like, if you're considering this to be the worst film that you've ever seen, let me show you The Condemned. Let me show you a couple of other movies that are just so much fucking worse than this. It's an hour and a half movie that's just riffing on an old horror movie. It's nothing necessarily special or anything, but it's far from the worst thing that I've watched, even this week. I'll save some of the worst things for later because I only want to talk about so much, but I'm going to put this out there. Both of us on this show come at most movies that we watch trying to not yuck someone's yum. We don't want to just shit on something because like someone else might like it. And there's nothing, whether you think I'm an idiot for hating The Condemned or In a Violent Nature or whatever other movie I hated and brought up, that's fine. I don't really care about that. But I don't think there's ever been a point where I've said, you shouldn't try to watch this on your own. You shouldn't give the movie a try, or you shouldn't I don't see the point in shitting on it in that way. You want to shit on it and say like Edward Furlong looks like he's been drinking through the entire production. Okay, I got nothing to defend him. I'm not trying to. You want to shit on it with it saying the effects look like they're from 2009 and they're kind of shitty. Okay, well, again, you're not wrong, but like, shut the fuck up. Like, it is trash. I know it's trash. And you know what? I fucking like trash. So I'm going to continue to watch this trash. So fuck that. That's all I really had with Night of the Demons, but I will say
Oscar the Grouch should be our mascot, because he loves trash just like we do.
It's been shared. It's just, I don't know. There's certain films, if you put up that, if someone says that they're watching them, I kind of feel like they probably know it's trash. You don't need to like fucking try to throw your film overlording on them because it's not up to your standards or whatever. Like, calm the fuck down. Speaking of trash, but entertaining trash, and you'll know this one because we already talked about it. I got bored after watching a different trash movie and watched Equalizer 2000, which is a whole bunch of fuckers that you never heard of. Basically,
excuse me, Richard Norton. Who hasn't heard of Richard Norton? Come on.
So Richard Norton and a bunch of other fuckers. Basically, this is the 1980s film equivalent of a kid in a sandbox taking all his toys out, all the cars, all the Barbie dolls, all the G.I. Joes, and all the guns that he can find around his house, and just kind of throwing them all at each other in the sandbox for about an hour and a half while making the guys come out with guns and scream. It's one of those like, okay, there's a bunch of dudes running around shooting everything in sight. If there's a story here, I don't really care. There's a lot of Mad Max looking cars. It's one of those movies that it's like, I don't care. This is just dumb fun. Like, it leaves you kind of like, and you sent me your review of it from, a site that you worked before that basically said the same thing. Like, for what this movie is, it's just a lot of dumb explosions and fun. And I don't disagree with that. So Equalizer 2000, that's available on Plex. That will be linked in the show notes. Give that a try if you want something stupid to watch.
And if you want to read my review, scroll back through John's social media blue sky history. It'll be somewhere on there, I think.
Oh, yeah, I think I retweeted it. So, or blue skied it, or wherever the fuck those are.
Skeeted it. You skeeted it out.
So it is. I skeeted it. So
Skeet.
The other movie that I feel like was worth mentioning, and I actually had a lot more fun with this movie than I remembered. So I had not watched the movie Blacula since I was probably in high school. It's probably the last time I saw it. I won't go into why I decided to watch Blacula, but I put it on, and I gotta say, for a vampire movie, it's not my favorite. Like, it's still pretty solidly behind From Dusk Till Dawn. It's still pretty solidly behind Lost Boys. Past that, this is one of the more entertaining vampire movies I've watched in a long fucking time. And for what, it's a 1970s PG movie, so that's basically like an R-rated movie now, for the most part. But I like that all the vampires basically look like Romero zombies from Dawn of the Dead. Like, they all turn blue for some reason. To throw back to my Salem's Lot comment from before, there's a lot of like, that's vampire noises, apparently. Put your hands up and growl. The effects are comically terrible, but in the way that we enjoy it. Like, all right, well, they made this work kind of thing. And I know there's a sequel, which I haven't gotten around to watching. I'm not sure I ever have watched Blacula Scream, but, you know, spoilers for this, like, 63-year-old movie. Yeah, no, 53-year-old movie.
Math is hard.
Yeah, math is hard. It's got a vampire suicide, which I don't know that I've seen in a movie before or after this. I guess it would be after, more likely. But yeah, I mean, it's, again, for what this movie is, I can't recommend this movie enough. It's entertaining. It definitely pokes fun at stereotypes. It definitely embraces the blaxploitation genre as much as it can for a 1970s PG movie. And I don't know, I had a lot of fun with it. So if we're giving hot dogs on our, like, what we watch, go check out Blacula. It's a hell of a lot of fun and might be revisited at some point in the next year. So,
and you know, it has Thalamus Rusalala in it.
I do. So, because he's in the cast.
Now, my question is, have you ever seen Defula?
No.
Okay.
Is this a deaf vampire?
Yeah, it's all in sign language. I don't think there's any talking in the movie at all. It's like a deaf Dracula with lots of sign language, which, hey, you know, everybody should have their own, like, vampire Dracula interpretation they can claim, you know?
Every minority needs their own representation as a vampire.
Representation of Dracula. I'm behind it.
We should all be so lucky to have Selma Hayek represent us as a vampire, but not most of us are.
Amen.
No comment.
No, amen.
Anyway, apparently I have to watch Defula now, but until then, that's all I really got for this week. I'll save the other things I watched for upcoming weeks in case we run short on shit, as we tend to do. You got anything else you want to hit on before we take a break and come back and talk about this week's topic?
No, you know, John, I think I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Well, in that case, then we will take a break and come back and talk about the movie They Live. If you haven't heard of it, you should.
Hey folks, Sean here. Are you a horror fan? Get your fix with the LK the Horror Nerd podcast. Step into the world of spine-tingling thrills, chilling tales, and deep dives into everything horror with the LK the Horror Nerd podcast. Hosted by the incredible Lorelei Kerouac, this show offers a fresh, inclusive perspective on the genre we all know and love. Each episode is a unique mix of movie reviews, TV show breakdowns, book recommendations, video game critiques, and more. With insightful discussions, expert interviews, and a passionate take on horror news, LK the Horror Nerd brings the spooky straight to your ears. Whether you're into blood-curdling scares or thoughtful genre analysis, LK the Horror Nerd has something for you. You can check out LK and the other fine podcasts at yourunpodcast.com.
All right, so we are back, and as promised, we're going to be talking about the movie They Live. This week, we are starting with a third-party review, and it is on Rotten Tomatoes from Tim W. Tim W. says, well, there went a few brain cells down the drain. Ironically, I've seen better acting in pro wrestling. Character actions make absolutely no sense. Pointless drug-out fight scene, switching scenes right in the middle of the action to the next day, ? This is in here twice, so hear me out. It's not even so bad it's good. The cherry on top is an alien using a Ghostbusters PKE meter as a communication device. I would not obey if they'd erase all memories of what is especially a porn movie with no sex. Half star out of 5. I don't agree with Tim at all, but Tim might be a
Tim can
moron.
get fucked.
Tim aside, Sean, why don't you tell us a little bit about what They Live is all about?
Okay, so for that, we go over to IMDb, we type in the words They Live, that's 2 words, and we pull up a 1988 horror movie? A 1988 movie, R-rated. It is 7.2. It gets 7.2 out of 10 with 154,000 ratings. We are back. People, everybody, get excited. Pop some champagne. We are back into the popularity scale. This one is up to 968. It's been so long since we've had a movie that's had a popularity scale. I don't even know how to read this.
We're going to fall right back out of it next week, so don't worry.
Well, yeah, for sure. But this, anyways, it says 968 with a green arrow going up, and that's up 597 spots from something. I don't know what any of that shit means because, again, it's been so goddamn long. But we go to the storyline and the plot. We're going to, It's got to be up. It's got to be up because of WrestlerMAYnia like a week ago. Or because it's 2025. But we are up.
Or that.
And we go to the storyline and the plot, never know which one's which, but we read the one on top because they wouldn't put it on top if they didn't want it to be read first. It says, they influence our decisions without us knowing it. They numb our senses without us feeling it. They control our lives without us realizing it. They live. And if we scroll on down towards the bottom, we get the storyline, care of Melissa Porter at mportel at s-cwis.unomaha.edu. Thank you, Melissa, for sending this into the podcast. It says, Nada, a down-on-his-luck construction worker, discovers a pair of special sunglasses. Wearing them, he's able to see the world as it really is. People being bombarded by media and government with messages like stay asleep, no imagination, submit to authority. Even scarier is that he's able to see that some, usually normal-looking people are in fact ugly aliens in charge of the massive campaign to keep humans subdued.
That's right. I like that the whatever this is, the plot or whatever at the top is basically a tagline. I don't think I've seen that on one of these before that we've talked about on IMDb, but I like that it's just super vague and doesn't really tell you much of anything. It's just enough to be interesting.
It's like the bottom, the headline or whatever on the movie poster. It's kind of that vibe.
It's similar to it, yeah. But I like that. I like that. That's something different. So that's good. I'll go ahead and lead with, if you didn't know, this is a John Carpenter, 1980s John Carpenter film. So it's got that going for it. And Sean, who else is in this film that has been directed by Sean Carpenter?
Shit, man. Must be related. People with first names
John
are related
Carpenter.
these days.
That's how it works. I traded him to your team.
We've changed it. Yes. So this one stars. That's, you heard it right, folks. Stars a wrestler, Rowdy Roddy Piper. He plays Nada. Actually, he doesn't have a name in the movie. They just credit him as Nada because they don't say his name. He is the WWE superstar. He's also been in amazing films like Hell Comes to Frogtown. One of my personal favorites, Body Slam, and one of John's personal favorites, The Reconciler. We have Keith David, who plays Frank. He is, I mean, if you don't know who Keith David is, just, I don't know.
Tell us how you got here.
Yeah, I can't save you. He is a voice actor.
I kind of feel like that
actor.
with Rowdy Roddy Piper too. If you don't know who he is, please tell us how you got here. So
yeah, he's a super popular voice actor. He played the Arbiter in Halo. He has been in the Saints Row series. He's got like 370. I think he has like 389 credits to his name. You've probably seen him maybe in Armageddon. He's also been in John Carpenter's The Thing. Again, think of like 370 other things. I think that's like the record for people we've talked about. That's, again, 370. We have Meg Foster, who plays Holly Thompson. She was Evil Lynn in Masters of the Universe. She was in Lords of Salem, Stepfather 2. She's been in quite a few things. Her prominent thing is like her really pale blue eyes. If you've seen pale blue eyes on an actress from the 80s, it was probably Meg Foster. We also have Peter Jason, who plays Gilbert. He's another character actor. He was in Escape from LA. He was Master Boyd from Mortal Kombat. He has
big time Callahan.
Yeah, and he's got plenty. He's got a cornucopia of roles on his IMDb.
Yeah, there's a lot of, this is in true John Carpenter fashion. There's a ton of guys and people in this that you'll look at and be like, hey, I recognize that guy from da-da-da. It's kind of one of those movies. And
not the stuff, but stuff.
Not the stuff. There's probably someone from the stuff in here,
sure.
but I didn't take the time to cross-reference it because, Chocolate Chip Charlie's on it, and so who cares? I don't know about you, but when I watched this, I haven't watched this in a while. And every time I watch this movie, I always kind of hit a point of like, God, why do I like put this on the shelf so long? Because this movie really does the thing that John Carpenter does so fucking well when he wants to. And it's not every movie that he has. Obviously, for every movie like this, you could point at a movie like, I don't know,
Ghost of Mars.
Yeah, sure. There's several that are not so great, but when he's doing this, actually, I think this movie is probably closer to Escape from New York as far as like the general vibe that it gives compared to any of his films. But when he's doing this, like almost like Armageddon / like hellscape storytelling, this really dark vibe, and just the way that he portrays stories like this in this era of his filmmaking, it's hard for me to really say that someone does it better. Like, he's so good at giving you the bare minimum to have have ultimate interest in these characters and pulling out so much out of these characters that really they don't give you a whole lot of, like, whether it's Nada or whether it's Frank or anyone else in this movie, there's not a shit ton of backstory in there. There's just enough to kind of let you know what's happening and enough to string you along from scene to scene. And I don't know if it's just the soundtrack that Carpenter puts into all his films or the way he directs his actors or just the cinematography in general. Just, he fucking nails it in a movie like this.
What I really like about the way that the characters are set up, like you said, there's not a lot of kind of exposition to tell you their backstories. They tell the other characters their backstory. Like Frank is like, I got a wife and kids in Detroit, and you know,
never see.
Yeah, that's fine. And we know that Nada he's from Washington. He worked construction and the job's dried up, and that's why he had to move on. You know, just simple stuff like that. Like, you don't need 20 minutes to learn the backstory of these guys. We get right into it from the get-go. Like, they hit the ground running. We know what these guys are about. We know why they're here. We know why they're doing what they're doing. And there's not like a lot of, it's all killer, no filler. And I think with this movie, kind of like you said, I hadn't seen this in quite a while. It had been a long time. And the thing that I kept thinking about while I was watching it this time is, I mean, I've always been cynical, like Gen Xer dude, right? So that didn't surprise me at all. But I remember I was actively thinking this while I was watching it this time. The movie, like, I never really felt before like the movie progressed at a really great pace. Like, I felt like the pacing was off previously, but watching it this time, it didn't feel like the hour and 34 minutes or whatever. It just rolled so smoothly. And I don't know if it's outside factors affecting life these days that kind of made me feel that way. But it was just the movie, as I've gotten older, like even when I saw it the first time, I was like, oh, that's really cool, but it's slow. And then as I've gotten older, I've grown to appreciate the pacing of it and how it tells the story. Because I think as a younger person, I was probably more looking for like an action movie.
The fight scene.
Yeah, you get the fight scene, you get a few like, you know, shootouts and whatnot, but it's not a Rambo. You know what I mean? It's not like, it's not a Schwarzenegger Commando. There's more of a story here, even if it is told in these like bite-sized chunks.
I'll agree with you. The pacing, well, I don't know if agrees or the pacing's interesting in this movie because it is a slower moving movie, except for like the middle, probably 30 minutes or so of the movie where there's a lot of shit that happens right basically from when
it's kind of like when he gets the glasses.
I was going to say when the homeless camp raid happens, when they raid the church or whatever, basically from when they raid the church up until roughly they get to the the TV station or whatever, or the banquet, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of shit that happens there. And it's interesting there because when you're in that section of the movie, which is in the middle of the movie, and we're going to have to backtrack and talk about what this movie's about, I guess. But
what?
When you're in that section of the movie, in the climax of the movie, I think you would argue it's the movie that everyone remembers. It's all the quotes that have been dropped already in this episode. It's all the things that you really think about with this movie. It's interesting because it's like, it goes from this weird, like, draconian sci-fi drama, or like dystopian sci-fi drama.
I was like, damn, you're breaking out the $5 words. That's my job, John. What are you doing?
Dystopian's a better word than draconian. But anyway, So you go from this like weird dystopian sci-fi like drama to like sci-fi action shoot 'em up for about 30 minutes, and then it's back to kind of wrap it up in like even darker sci-fi drama. That's also, I don't want to call it brooding so much, but it feels very hopeless, but in a way that works really well for this movie.
Why don't you give us like the Cliff Notes breakdown?
So if I were to say the Cliff Notes on this, I actually would keep this one shorter than most. You have Rowdy Roddy Piper, who's a drifter and looking for work. In the process, inadvertently discovers that aliens have taken over the planet and they're essentially using people as cattle to fuck shit up. It doesn't really go overboard on detailing what exactly the aliens are doing or how they're doing it or why they need people for that matter. But through the course of him figuring this out, he pretty quickly decides he's going to kill as many aliens as he can, goes on a killing spree, and shit hits fans, is the best way I could say it without totally ruining what happens in the movie.
There is a quote when I watched it this time that I totally picked up on. And Keith David Frank says to Nada, Rowdy Roddy Piper, he says something along the lines of like, I'm over this shit. Like, I am trying to walk the white line and just stay out of trouble and just keep my head down and do what I got to do for my wife and kids back in Detroit. And
it's pretty early he says that, isn't it?
Yeah. And Nada says something back to him. He says, you can't stay, or he says, the white line is in the middle of the road and that's no place to drive. And that really kind of sticks to me because my kind of Cliff Notes, what I wrote is a down on his luck construction worker looks for work to get back on his feet. He falls in with a homeless encampment of people who have developed special sunglasses that let them see the world as it really is. And that's what this movie's all about. Like, Nada could have just said like, yeah, fuck it. You know what? I'm just going to pretend like none of this ever happened. I'm just going to keep on. And all the other people that we eventually meet throughout the movie who have kind of fallen in with the world as it really is, who are kind of like, yeah, it's going to fill my pockets. Let's go ahead and do the thing. They've picked their side of the road, and Nada and Frank, it takes a little bit of convincing, some five-finger convincing to get Frank to believe in the thing too. But they all start to pick their sides of the road that they're going to drive. And I don't know, it's just really like prescient. That's the whole thing about this movie. Like, I know we're going to get into the likes and dislikes. This whole movie, I mean, they mention in the movie that by the year 2025, and I was like, holy fucking shit. Number one, is it 2025? Yes, it is. And number two, holy shit. It feels like this whole thing was made in 1988 and John Carpenter was like, had a crystal ball and he was like, this is really funny, isn't it? Reaganomics and all this shit, trickle down, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, there's a ton of similarities. And I love the story behind that they pushed the release back of this movie to coincide with the election that year. Like, I don't know if you want to call that punk rock or ballsy or what, but it's fucking rad as shit that he decided to do that. Mm-hmm. And I heard one interview with him just today. He was like, I love that I was the only person giving a middle finger to Reagan and I just ran with it. And I was like, and he has so many, like, he took a much lower budget to make this movie to be able to make exactly the movie he wants to make. I think we've said it before on other films, but that's admirable. Like, if you're willing to take less to make a better movie and tell the story you want to tell, like, fucking go for it, man. That's I think in general what we want to see.
Yeah, you take whatever cuts you have to, so you have total control over what the final film is. There's no director's cut, as far as I know, of this movie. Like, the final cut of what you see is the director's cut. I know that it's come up, so I wanted to give the listeners a little bit of BTS, a little behind the scenes that I was able to kind of glean from random information because I was like looking up oral history of They Live and all this shit. There's a quote, and it's I love this, that it's said that it was Randy Macho Man Savage's favorite line in the film is "Life's a bitch and she's back in heat," which Roddy Piper gives. And the other thing is that Vince McMahon didn't want Piper to do this movie. McMahon was like, I can find you a film role that's going to pay this rate, and within 4 weeks, like, give me 4 weeks. You don't have to leave, you don't have to be in this movie, whatever. And Piper's like, no, I'm going to do this movie because it's like, I really think it's a good movie and it's a good role for me. And he says that he did it just because McMahon was such a control freak. He says, when I came back to wrestling, I was twice as important as when I left. And he credits Carpenter and the success of the film. He says, the politics of that business is something I don't get. That's what John Carpenter says of wrestling. That is, of course.
Well, and this is Piper's first movie role too, right?
Yeah, it was like the first, like, other than maybe Hulk Hogan in Rocky, what was that, Rocky 2 as Thunder Lips?
Oh, no, I'm not talking about wrestlers.
No, I'm talking about even as wrestlers. Like, this was like one of the first movies where an actual wrestler, because it is WrestlerMAYnia, after all, one of the first movies that a wrestler took a mainstream film role, and it was like, I mean, it was only a box office. Watchable. Yeah, it was true. It was like a box office #1 for like 1 week, and then it kind of disappeared pretty quickly. But at least it was something, and it was probably, I think a lot of fans or a lot of like movie people in the know would say this is like one of the movies that really kicked off wrestlers realizing that they could be in movies. Like, I don't think, other than, when did No Holds Barred come out? Was that like 87?
It was after
maybe
this.
the year before. Was it after this?
It was
89?
after this because but I remember one of the things I watched said specifically that Hogan's debut came after this. So whenever that was. But I mean, and you got to give Roddy Piper credit for this too. Like, you know, having watched a bunch of Roddy Piper movies,
The Reconciler, one of your favorites.
Yes. With all due respect to the man, you know, he wasn't the strongest actor. And I'm not sure he's the strongest actor even in this, but they used what he can do very, very well in this. They didn't like overburden him with, you know, a bunch of wordy dialogue and shit. The fight scene that they have that's, you know, we haven't really touched on that much, was supposed to be a 20-second scene, and they just started
like one
fighting
page or something. It turned into like 6 pages of the script.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of things in this, like, I mean, a lot of that you probably owe to Carpenter too, because of whatever directing he did, whatever choices he made, etc. But he really, for what this movie is and what Roddy Piper's film career would become, he really asserted himself well first time out the gate. And I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say that this is by far his best film that he made.
Well, I mean, I think that kind of harkens back to using people who are wrestlers in the way that they are best utilized. Like we talked about it in Condemned with Stone Cold, and his thing was like, I'm going to deliver the one-liner, I'm going to beat people up, and I'm going to like walk off screen. Like, that's what I can do. And I think you're kind of short selling Piper's, like, his mic skills, because that is something that he was known for. He was always known for having great promos. But yeah, I mean, I think that leads, I agree that this is probably his best role, and that kind of lends into this.
I'm not trying to sell his mic skills short. I'm saying it's not like they had him doing like,
he wasn't doing Shakespeare.
Exactly. So something like that. So we've been dancing around it. Why don't we start with let's do the likes and dislikes, because otherwise this is going to go like, this could turn into a 4-hour episode. So Sean, what are some of the things that you like about this movie?
Gushing over They Live. I mean, I've already mentioned it. I think this is like almost 40 years later. This movie is so prescient. Like, it makes so much sense. And it's, somebody had the crystal ball out when doing this. So I have I'm going to kind of pepper in this dislike. One of the dislikes that I have about this movie is the scene where they're back at Holly's house and it's on that hill. When he takes the glasses off, he mentioned several times, like, it's like a high putting them on, and taking them off is such a downer. Like, it's so draining. And she catches him at a vulnerable moment because he's kind of like kidnapped her to escape the cops. And she hits him on the back of the head with like a champagne bottle or something. He flies out the window, lands on the back of his neck, and rolls like another 40 feet. It's like a 20-foot drop, another 40 feet down this hillside. And he's just kind of like groggy for the day, and he like falls asleep and cold in the alleyway. That's kind of like, you know, it's a nitpick, but it's super unrealistic. But at the same time, it's like so badass. Like the whole scene of him flying out of this window, and the stunt person, it might have been Piper. I mean, they may have only dropped him 3 feet, but he looks legitimately like he landed on his neck. Again, you know, we've kind of touched on it real quick, or really slightly. This back alley fight is just knockdown, drag out, ridiculous. It keeps going.
It's one of the best in cinema.
Oh yeah,
it is so well done. It's been spoofed numerous times, and I love the pacing of that fight.
Yeah. And I love at the end, after the fight's over and after he gets Frank to put on the sunglasses and see like what he sees, they're walking down the street back to some like flop house or something for the night. And they're both just beat up. Their faces are all swollen and bloody. They both got these like loked out like sunglasses on. I think that's hilarious and great at the same time. They go to that special meeting to go over the plan. and they introduce that, oh yeah, you don't need the sunglasses anymore. We've developed contacts, and they both like try to put them in their eyes, and you can tell that neither Keith David or Piper have ever put in contacts. Yeah. They're doing this like crazy, I don't know, finger poke of doom in their own eyes. Another favorite is Piper's mullet is absolutely amazing. I could watch like a slow-mo 30% slowed down footage of his mullet flapping in the breeze, like ad infinitum. You could just put it on repeat, a loop, and I'd be like mesmerized. There's a scene at the end when they're going through the tower, like the TV station, and they are shooting, you know, they have the rifles, the automatic rifles, the ARs, and they're like shooting and all that stuff. Instead of showing them actually shooting, they just show a gun barrel with like a muzzle flash coming out, and the gun barrel's like shaking. I love that rather than showing them actually shoot the guns, they're showing just the muzzle flash on the end of a shaking gun barrel. That's amazing. That's cinema right there.
So for me, the stuff I like in this, I like everything that you just said too, but to kind of pile on some other things, I love the cinematography of this. I love the LA backdrop, the fact that there's so many scenes like the aforementioned scene where he gets, you know, hurled out of this apartment or whatever building. I love that you can see the LA skyline behind it, the giant buildings overlooking Skid Row. It's almost like it just kind of lends to the whole idea of like the rich eat the poor, all this like
haves and have-nots.
Yeah, it adds. It's not quite like with Escape from New York, where New York becomes its own character. It's not quite to that, but it just feels like this ominous presence throughout the movie. And it's weird to say that because this is, for the most part, a movie that's shot in broad daylight, lots of sun, lots of palm trees, and all the other stuff that you like about LA. So it doesn't really feel like inherently dark or spooky or anything like that you would normally think with John Carpenter. It takes it in a really different way and just has this like realistic, like vibrant, like terrible feeling about it throughout the whole thing, which I absolutely love. I also love the look and the cinematography between when the glasses are on and when the glasses are off. I love that it cuts to this like black and white 50s throwback look. I like that the alien, I guess they're aliens, they all have this same like formaldehyde face or whatever with the this like, I mean, I'm guessing they just found these masks at some like Halloween store, very similar to what happened at, you know, with the original Halloween movie, and just kind of painted it up to, I mean, I don't know if these are William Shatner masks or what, but they look just like rubber masks that they just did these super quick paint jobs on and said, we need like 100 of these to put all over this movie. And it looks great. I love how they left this rubbery look to all the masks inside when he can see them. I think it's fantastic. And for the character of Nada, I like how inherently distrustful and curious he is. Like, this is how this whole story gets going, is he sees a church that's got shit going on after hours. So he's like, that's not right. And he kind of investigates on it. And it just like triggers, I don't know that it triggers the events, but it triggers him getting involved in the events that are going on. So it plays like they present him as a down on his luck drifter who's just trying to get by. But even like the little unspoken things he does kind of implies that he's a little bit more than that. So, I mean, and again, I could go on and gush about this movie for a lot more than I would have thought, apparently. But those are just some of the big things that, like, outside of the big scenes that you already mentioned, just little things that I noticed this time more so that just, I don't know. I found myself watching it like, I really love how this looks. I really love how, like, those types of things were running through my head throughout the entire viewing of this movie.
Yeah, and the interplay between Frank and Nada is really like, it's just a really cool. Perfect. Yeah, it's like a buddy cop movie. There's a scene specifically I'm thinking of when Nada gets the job at the construction site and Frank sees that he's working hard or whatever, and he's like, the foreman's like, you can't sleep here, dude. You got to get the fuck out of here. And he's like, I don't have anywhere to go. He's like, when do I get paid? And you don't get paid till Thursday, so get the fuck out. And Frank comes by and he's like, hey, do you need a place to stay? And Nada's like, yeah, he's just kind of unresponsive. And he's like, well, if you want, I can show you. There's a place that has like, they'll feed you and whatever. And I'm heading over that way. I can show you. And he doesn't kind of say anything, but he starts following him. And Frank turns around, or he's walking quite a bit. And he's like, hey man, I don't appreciate people following me when I don't know what they're following me for. And he says to him something to the effect of like, well, I don't group up with just anybody if I don't know where they're going. It's like, that's like a really cool interplay between the characters where one is leading and he's like, the other one's like, yeah, I can't join your group if I don't know where you're going, dude.
I like the play between the two of them because it feels genuine. It feels like, hey, I just met this guy at work. Like, I don't really know him that well, but like, he seems like a good guy. And that's even when they get in this like knockdown brawl in the middle of the movie, like it still plays more like these are guys who, I don't want to go as far to say they're like, you know, best buds or something, but the relationship is very believable for what it is. It's not forcing them into this like, oh, I've known this guy since he was 8 or whatever type backstory. There's none of that. It works really well for how they wrote this story. Do you have anything negative on this one?
Everything that I have about this movie is just that our negatives are really just nitpicks. Like, for example, Nada just gets away too easily from everything. He gets in the bank and he's shooting people up or aliens or whatever up. And there's just really that cops and security guards, but they're all aliens and there's really no consequence. Like they kind of recognize them. They have these like watches that they can talk to everybody in the hive mind or whatever and try and find this guy. And he just kind of gets away. Like there's the scene I'm thinking of in particular is he's just walking down a main street in LA. He gets sidetracked into this alley that's closed. It's like maybe 30 feet deep and he shoots 2 cops. And there are people in the background of the scene. If you look really closely, they're just like normal. Yeah. Broad daylight, normal people just walking across the street in the background. No like gunfire and shit. They don't even flinch. I mean, maybe the 80s in LA was probably pretty violent, but I don't think it was quite like this. And it just kind of, I don't know. It's like the attention to detail on little stuff like that can be, again, it's a nitpick. It's a bit of a downer for me. The other thing, again, I've mentioned it, him surviving this freakish fall from 20 feet onto the back of his neck. No worse for the wear after a good night's sleep, you know, in an alleyway or whatever. And the other thing, like at the end of the good night's sleep will fix everything. Just ask. The other thing is that the other guy who's like a bum in the settlement, in the homeless settlement, he's a bum. I mean, he's a straight up bum. He's watching TV. I don't know how they got power, so maybe that's another nitpick.
I was wondering that TV too, but
in the middle of a field, and the hacker, who's like, these hackers, I don't know how they came in this thing. He's kind of like already against the resistance, even though he doesn't know that there's a revolution going on. Within days, like mere days, he's at the banquet at the end in the underground layer thing with a tuxedo on. He's like, yeah, you guys should have, you have all the good money. You should have dressed up. It's like, dude, you've been here for 3 days. How did you turn from being a fucking guy living in a cardboard box or whatever in the settlement, getting your house torn down, to 3 or 4 days later, you're in a tux and in some big fancy dinner? I guess maybe it's more of like not knowing the actual timeline as to how things progress, which it's, again, huge nitpick, but that's just how I am. It's hard to get out of that rut when you're like, okay, what? It's kind of like when we talked about Silver Bullet. Like, it feels like it's supposed to be a week, but it's actually like several months because this only happens like once a month, but they don't spell it out. I'm just the kind of guy that needs to have it spelled out once in a while.
For me, I don't think the character of Holly adds enough to the movie. I think she kind of sucks, aside from having blue eyes and like clobbering our hero at one point. I don't think she's a very like stiff character. Like, she doesn't do a whole lot. She doesn't respond a whole lot.
Even the way she talks
kind of sucks.
Yeah, she's very stiff in her responses.
And then she basically plays the heel by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And spoilers for something I already said. And that's fine. And I'm not like, I would have been okay with that if they had just kind of played more into it. And that kind of leads to my second thing. And this might even kind of piggyback on what you said, how there's a lot of like convenient things that happen in this movie, like him getting out of situations, him getting into situations in some cases. This is almost like a double-edged nitpick, because on the one hand, I think this movie's great as it is, not below my hot dog part coming up, but
blowing a hot dog.
If you didn't already know, like, I think this movie is great the way it is. And I'm often, like most people, I don't want to see like the franchises or the things I like getting ruined by someone else. That said, if ever was an IP that could be like turned into a great miniseries or like a longer, something to give us more, like, and I don't even think you need to touch this movie. You could have this movie just be like the prologue to it. But like, if you could you'd have to have the right director for it. I think that'd be the big thing. But like a 10 episode HBO miniseries where they explain what these aliens are, why they're here. Maybe you turn Holly into an android or something that explains why she's so fucking emotionless. I don't know. Like, there's all kinds of shit. They do a good job telling this story in this like little hour and a half format. But at the same time, I feel like there's so much meat on the bone on this story that you could easily extrapolate out at least a season, if not 2 or 3, of this type of storyline. And there's almost not enough in this movie to totally ruin its predecessor. Like, this movie's great the way it is, but there's so little in this that we could go back and tell this story in depth in like a, hour-long installment format and give you a really like good story of what happened before Nada showed up, what happened after Nada showed up, where, like, there's so many different ways you could take it. And maybe it's just because somewhere in Hollywood, they don't want to fuck with this like type of storyline because of what it implies. Like, it's not even an undertone, what the overtone of this movie is.
It would have to be subtle to be an undertone.
Yeah, like maybe that's why is like just no studio wants to get involved with what the storyline is in this, which I could see because like, it'd be really weird to have like Nada showing up and he's just like, all this fucking advertising, I'm going to blow up all these aliens, cracks a Coca-Cola, swigs a Bud Light, and then gets Slurms McKenzie out there to do whatever. I think that's a weird way. Like, that's the only thing I feel like I kind of would like more of in this movie, aside from Holly being either just all around better or not there at all. I guess either way would be fine. This is a story I would like a more in-depth look at, just to kind of flesh out this universe and flesh out what's going on here with it. And yes, I know there's like a 6-page comic book it's based off on. I haven't read it. I probably won't. I don't know. I think this would be a cool concept to bring to a longer format.
Just to play devil's advocate, I feel like that's one of the things that in this movie that maybe I'm not playing devil's advocate. Maybe I'm using that incorrectly, but I feel like this movie, a lot of the charm for me is almost less is more. Like, I feel like I don't need to know what's going on, like behind the scenes, how we got here, how we got, to this place. And I feel like you almost don't even realize while watching this movie that these are aliens until there's that scene underground where there's the faster than light travel or whatever, where they're like, oh yeah, we're zipping them off to wherever in this place and that place. And the guy, the homeless prophet, not the prophet, because that's the preacher guy, but the homeless guy that becomes like part of the anti-resistance, I guess part of the movement, is, I don't know. It's kind of like he's kind of the sellout, he's like, oh yeah, man, we just do what they say and they'll leave us alone. It's like, no, I don't know. You're a fucking idiot. That's not how it works. You let them do what they do. And then you're the last one maybe that becomes the dog food, but you eventually still become the dog food,
Well, and I agree with you on that too. Like I said, that's why it's a double-edged like negative. Like, on the one hand, the movie's great the way it is. I'm not going to go as far to call it perfect, but it's told in a way that's pretty well done. I really have no major complaints with this film. That said, in a world where every movie gets a reboot, every movie gets a reboot, every movie gets a spinoff, every movie gets sequelized, all that nonsense. And maybe John Carpenter just said no to all that. For all I know, they've approached him and he said,
that
fuck
sounds
off.
like a John Carpenter thing. Yeah.
Well, then again, there's also a guy who says, pay me for it. And, then we have Halloween Ends. I could see that going either way, but again, you're not wrong. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I'm just saying, if this were to get a more drawn out story, a more detailed story, I wouldn't be mad about it.
Yeah.
Or at least not until I saw it. So maybe after I saw it, I'd be pissed.
Right.
It's fucking trash. God damn it. Oh, they put Finn Wolfhard in there. Ew, fuck him.
They should put more Gary Busey.
Well, that's always true. That is a major negative with this movie. It's no Gary Busey. You got anything else you want to tack on, or are we starting to press up against runtime here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've said what we need to say.
You probably have an idea where we're going with this next segment, but Sean, what time is it?
Then you're in for a big treat, bro, because it's hot dog time.
I'm going to lead us off. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. This is a great movie. It's a very relevant movie. It's almost terrifyingly relevant, but even that aside, like, Rowdy Roddy Piper's great in this. He's always Rowdy Roddy Piper, not just Roddy Piper. I don't care what IMDb says. Keith David is great in this. Most of the side characters are great in this, and it's just all around. This is a bona fide classic of a movie. If you like 80s movies, if you like sci-fi movies, you know, most of the stuff that we talk about, this is a full hot dog. If there's ever been one, go just watch this movie and let us know what you think about it.
Whose hot dog is this? That's yours?
Yeah, it's mine. So I feel like John Carpenter was onto something when he made this. I'm sure when he made this or when it was written, it was more reactionary to late 80s. And now we're like 40 years later with all that hindsight. It feels like this could be a true story. I mean, to me, I feel like this could be a true story. It could be the Gen Xer in me coming out, but I feel like this could be a true story. When I watched it previously, like I said earlier, I felt like it dragged on a bit, but I feel like as I've gotten older, I've appreciated the film and what it does more. And I feel like it just like as I get older, I appreciate it more and more. And maybe as we get closer to 2025, as they mentioned in the movie, it's so fucked up that we're at like 2025. And it's kind of like, that's where we are. I have nitpicks. Obviously, like you said, it's not a perfect film. Definitely have nitpicks. But I feel like all in all, this is necessary viewing if you like the types of movies that we talk about, if you've liked the types of movies that we've given full hot dogs to. I'm fully on board with what John said. I am 100% hot dog, full hot dog in, gets it from me. If you haven't seen it before, you should watch it. If you have seen it before, I feel like you should watch it again. It will meet all the expectations. I hope that you think, unless you're like whatever our dipshit reviewer said earlier on, our guest reviewer said, fuck that guy. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Listen to us. We know what we're talking about. One full hot dog from me on They Live.
If you want to watch They Live, the best place to do it would be to come out to Badge Brewing on May 22nd. We'll be showing this for Franks and Steins this month. It probably won't be canceled this month. Let's hope. But yeah, you can come watch it with us there. We'll watch it with the group. And I'm actually kind of really interested to see how this movie plays in the group setting, because this is a different burn than what we usually bring to Franks and Steins, but I'm kind of looking forward to it.
If nobody cheers when some shit gets blown up, I'm going to be pissed. But I'm going to be cheering. It's going to be, we're going to have a big problem, but I'm going to be cheering.
Be your own cheering section. That's how it happens. So, ladies and gentlemen, Rob Zombie has shown up.
Yep.
That leaves us with the question of the week. And this week, our question is very inspired by this movie. It is, if you had glasses that would let you see what no one else could see, what would you want to see? Keyword there is want. So it's, you have some fun with it. Most of our answers are on Instagram this week, so we're going to start over there and stay there for a minute. But we'll start with Jordana over at Pretty Killer Podcast, friend of the show. And she says she would like to see when someone farts. Responded. I responded.
In the spirit of the question. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I responded because I felt like this needed more detail. I said, so do you just want to see like the gas out of the butt or like an arrow pointing to who did it or what? She goes, honestly, I like the idea of both. I want to see who's dropping bombs and see who's crop dusting. So very practical.
Do you think it would be black and white? And would it just be like a disturbance of the air? Or would it be like it would enhance the color? Would it be green or something? Like a green smoke?
I was going to say, if it's a fart, it's got to be like a sulfur greeny yellow type color, right? Like,
I mean, I could see either way. If it's just like a disturbance in the air and you could actually see that, that would be pretty cool. I'd be like, hey, man, can you fart for me? Because I want to see that. That looks pretty cool.
I'd also be dodging it,
Oh, yeah.
Making sure you don't get pink eye and all that shit. So.
Yeah. See if a fart really does leave a tail.
Carry a lighter around just to see if you can light it.
Walking through the fire.
All kinds of good ideas. So let's see. Next up, Leprechaun81 says buried treasure. So not as smelly, but yeah. Mike Freeman 77 says, wow, what a loaded question. Maybe see what's happening in the White House after hours. I don't know if I want to see that. Our friend Justin over at Pop Culture Reflections Podcast says, into the fridge to see if there's a beer there that I actually want without actually having to open the damn door to see if there's a beer in there. Very practical. I like it.
Isn't there some kind of philosophy that's like the American is they open the fridge door to see what's inside of it or some shit? I mean, I'm giving you so many clues. I
think the Samsung fridge, the one with giant tablet in it, doesn't that have an option to, it has like a camera in it or something. So See, Justin, you can go ahead and just spend like an extra $4,000 on a fridge and,
Yeah.
no
problem.
That's what you need. No, yeah, totally, dude says people's true intentions. It saved me a hell of a lot of time. Right about that.
Amen.
Our friend Greg, who's at Old Nerdy Bastard, says cancer, disease, and any other issues going on in the body, which I told him he's way too noble. And he said, well, yeah, we can't all do WWGB. I was like, what would Goldberg do? No. What would Gary Busey do?
I mean, that's very altruistic. Even the Gary Busey part. What would Gary Busey do? I don't think I want to know, but I appreciate that Greg's looking out for the cancer inside of us.
I don't even know if I want to know about the cancer that I have inside of me. So
He's a real one, that Greg.
our good friend Scott over at You Run Podcast says, quite simply, people's thoughts. I don't know if I want to see that.
Yeah.
Sam from Creature Features DTF says simply, the truth. Sounds like he's watched They Live.
That's the truth.
At Bumpers Movie says, naked women.
Hell yeah.
I'm surprised it took that long to get to this.
Really. That was the promise of X-ray specs for so long, and all you could see was your hand twice and it looked like it was bones. I want to see the real bones. Oh, I don't want to see the bones. Never mind.
Ed Doug Jensen says, straight up alien overlords, a la They Live, baby. Obey. So he's seen the movie
Consume.
before.
This is your
Our friends
God.
over at Dissect That. Our friends over at Dissect That Film say, all the fake ass people. You don't need glasses to see all the fake ass people. And then we're going to switch gears. We're going to switch gears and go over to Blue Sky. Our friends over at the Krusty Boys say, probably just your stats so I can analyze your strengths and weaknesses. And after you lay in an ashen pile at my feet, the Krusty Pod Monster podcast will finally be boring. I just responded to that. It's like, why didn't you just say boobs or something like that?
Who makes up the Krusty, the Krusty? Who makes up the Krusty Pod Monster?
So out of this weird,
Like who
ashen,
survives? Yeah.
definitely not me. I'm giving
No?
up before that. No, I'm the bum who's like got a cocktail and a tuxedo on. Like, fuck it, I'm just gonna get killed last.
Man, they raised our profits. They got 39% above board.
Exactly.
Whatever he says.
So I believe Ryan's the one who runs this account. So Ryan, if you want to let us know who makes up
survives
the
from
Krusty,
both.
who survives, what is the innards, the inner workings of the Krusty Pod Monster podcast, please let us
Maybe
know.
not innards. Maybe not innards.
Wrapping up this week's question of the week, certainly not last. First in our hearts is Podcast in the Woods, and Boomer says, all the cards in the shoe, I'm going to Vegas, which I had say, when you say shoe, is that some sort of gambling term? I don't know what you're talking about. And there's an explanation on gambling. So, Boomer, don't wear sunglasses at the casino. They might hear this and think you're onto something.
What do you think? You're Phil Hellmuth?
Sean, how about you? If you have magic X-ray, They Live specs that can see anything, what are you looking, that you can see whatever you want? Clarifying. What are you looking at?
I mean, there were so many good answers of actually like, we had the altruistic, we had the survival with the farts, the truth, all that good stuff. I have to say that I did look at Blue Sky and I did see that you said boobs and I felt kind of cheated that you stole my answer. Cause I mean, let's be honest, that would be pretty cool to be able to see whatever boobs you wanted to anytime you wanted to and not feel like a creep. I mean, you can't stare if you had the glasses that let you see the boobs, but I mean, I'd be down for
I'm just picturing you with these giant, like, cataract sunglasses on, just staring right at a chest, like, I don't know what you're talking about.
some blue blockers. Get yourself some of them blue blockers.
Yeah. I'm going to go one step further and just say straight up, full frontal nudity is the
I thought you were going to
answer.
say, I'm going to go one step further and say vaginas.
I want it all. So whatever we want to see. We'll even throw
X-ray
dick and
specs.
balls in there. That way I can
Yeah.
talk shit if I need to. Why not?
If you need to, yeah. I was in the pool.
Yeah, well, you probably weren't recently. So
Yes, I was.
that said,
Always been in the pool.
we've had everything in this episode. We've had hot dogs. We've had boobs. We've had butts. We've had farts. We've had invasive farts. Are we forgetting anything? Are we ready to wrap this one up?
We've had consume,
We've had consumed. So,
marry, and procreate. This is your God now.
deities aside, if you would like to follow us on other things, if you'd like to keep up with what we're doing, you can follow us on social medias. We're at Dewey Podmonster all over the place. We're on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads. That's kind of the main ones lately. But if there's a social media out there and we're on it, just search Dewey Podmonster. That's where you'll find us. You can also go to our site, which is crap.town. You can find all of our previous episodes there. You can send us feedback, or you can tell us what other things you would like to hear us talk about on there. No one's done that anytime recently, but you absolutely can. It's available for you. You can also leave us feedback on Spotify. You can go to yourunpodcast.com. That is the amazing network that we're on that has all these other great shows, and somehow us. We're available on there too. But go to yourunpodcast.com and, find something that you haven't found before. Check it out. It's worth doing. Yes. Sean, what am I forgetting?
Well, I was going to add, if you want your answer to the question of the week read on this here show, you can do that by following us or checking us out on all the social media that John cares about. You can find us at Dewey Pod Monster. Everything that we talk about on this show, besides sleeping, is available in the show notes. If it's a show or a movie or something that you think like, man, I really want to watch The New Kids, or I want to watch North Shore, I'm sure there'll be a link to it in the show notes. You can click those links. If it says Amazon next to it, that's an affiliate link. Otherwise, it's free because we try to make it free. But you know what? If you click the Amazon one and you buy something through there, if you rent the movie, if you buy, I don't know, condoms or jock straps or, I don't know, cock rings or something, we get a small cut of that. What John said, we get a small cut of that. We get like 0.1%. And you know what? It helps do something. Like if people do that, maybe we'll start seeing something, and maybe we can pay for this, I don't know, hosting or whatever the platform bullshit that we run on here. Anyways, click on those things, do the thing, you get something, and we got some things back for it. You can find me on social media. I'm on Blue Sky. I am at internalbleeding.crap.town. I post little shitty clips, sometimes of the movies that we talk about, sometimes of other shitty movies that I've watched that I think are, it's hilarious. Bigger Gary Busey rolling down on a big spool after a grenade exploded behind him. And you can find me there, and I post
Callback. Jeez.
Yeah, hey.
Callback.
I'm like a comedian, I like to wrap it up at the end and do the callback. Anyways, yeah, you can do all that stuff and internalbleeding.crap.town on Blue Sky. John, back to you.
Last and certainly not least, please do come out May 22nd. We'll be showing this at Batch Brewing for Frankenstein's this month. We would really like to see you come out and watch They Live With Us. Obey, do all the good stuff. Until next week, swill up butt horns. We'll be back. Have a great week. Blah, blah.
My kid's going to DC with school tomorrow, so
they still do that.
Well, evidently, I never did.
I never. Well,
I
know
a 6th grade trip for her 5th grade, and we were like horrible. Our class was just so bad that they wouldn't take us.
They revoked you. So
yeah, it was the first time that they never. But it was probably more like they didn't want to pay, or somebody didn't want to pay for something.
I think it was middle school for us, and I just didn't want to go at the time. I had already determined that I didn't like what happens in Washington.
I hate the fucking government.
More accurately, I hate the government.
13-year-old John was just pissed off at the government already.
Pretty much.
Fuck this shit. And that fucking
I'm going to go watch They Live and jerk off. But not at the same time. And if you want to watch Full Live, the best place to do it would be to come out to Batch Brewing